on.
No. We can see
That's
you
all
beautifully.
right.
Yes.
That's okay.
You're incredibly smart.
Yeah.
Look, you've got a fantastic walking stick too.
Just an ordinary,
Is it? It looks.
you know, the sort that you...
Oh, I thought because I could see that little bit of gold at the top. I thought he's got a gold top walking stick. I thought that's something that's really, something really smart.
My goodness, the
You
shop,
wish,
wouldn't
yeah.
it?
So let's start with your name,
Eric William Jennings.
Eric William Jennings. So what's your connection to the Collett family?
Mrs. Collett
Yes.
was my aunt, was Auntie Mary, my mother's eldest sister, and my mother was the youngest of all those sisters
Colletts.
of a large, very large family.
Yeah.
And Auntie Mary, that's Mary Emma Collett,
Yeah.
was the oldest of that family.
Right. Now, does that mean she's the sister of Omniferous? Or is...
No, she's the wife of Oliver Onesipherus.
She's the wife of Oliver Onesipherus. Do you know anything about that name?
What, Onesipherus?
Omniferous.
Onesipherus.
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 Right.
Does it come from the Bible?
Yes.
Is it biblical?
I think it's biblical.
It's biblical name.
You
Do you
mean
know, I have
you can
never
call it
come
Bible?
across it.
Yeah.
I've never come across it before. It's a wonderful name. I mean, it's a very distinguished name, isn't it?
I think it's out of concordance, a decent, thick concordance.
Yes.
Which I've got. I'll
Yes.
soon look it up for you.
Yes.
I
No,
thought
it's a really wonderful name
Because
to have.
Because any of you could, when I get back to Salisbury, you'll have my telephone number, any of you could ring me up
Yes.
and say, by the way, we've got a slight gap here, you might know this. And
That would be great. That would be absolutely great, because we might have some questions we think of
You have
later.
to pull up with whether I'm
Yes.
out shopping or not.
Yes, yes. What do you remember about him?
Everything.
Do you? Well, let's
I mean,
hear what you remember.
The point is that for the whole of nearly 1 year,
Yes.
I lived with them. At a point when my father was going to Bath, was he to get that new job? And wait a minute, and I would have been, when I was 7, Christopher Collett, you know Christopher, you know the family?
No, you'll have to
you
fill.
don't.
No,
Well,
but we have got the family tree somewhere.
the family is Oliver
Yeah.
and Mary married. They're the senior ones, okay?
Yes.
And then they have a son called Christopher.
Yes.
But before the son called Christopher, they had a daughter
Yeah.
whose name was Ethel.
Yes.
And when Christopher was 12 and went to Whitney Grammar School,
Yes.
I was 7
Yes.
and went to Miss Dutton's Dame's School, if you like.
Yes. Yes.
Now, I don't know whether...
We've got a picture of that actually.
Oh, have you?
Yes. Well.
Cool, that's amazing.
Yes,
Yeah,
but I thought it was a girls' school.
Yes, it
Am I
was.
right? Oh, right.
Yes,
okay.
it was. They were all, when I went there, I was a little boy at age 7, remember?
Yeah.
There are 2 little
And
boys on
somehow
that
or other,
photograph.
the Colletts obviously wanted me to still go to school.
Yes.
So, they sent me to Miss Dutton's school.
Yes.
Yes, they were all girls
Yes.
of all sorts of ages,
Yes.
from very high up to very small. And when Miss Dutton wasn't in the room, they told me all sorts of stories which weren't true,
Did they?
and told me that Miss Dutton had a cane as long as the room.
Is that to keep you in order?
Yeah, well, that was what the girls were having a bit of fun.
They were teasing you, weren't they?
I was,
Yeah. And then at the age of 7 you went and stayed.
I was with them for about a whole year. I don't know. Yes, I have some idea about why my parents ditched me there.
Yeah, yeah.
One was my father, probably about that time, had big, cook and boggis. My father met my mother at cook and boggis.
Yeah.
But we've been living in Oxon because he got a job as a manager of John Hines' shop. You know Hines, the poshest tailor in High Street.
Yes.
He became the
In
manager of that
In
shop.
Oxford.
Oh, in Oxford. Oh, this
In
is before my
Oxford.
time, yes.
In
okay.
Oxford. And then Hein's brother wanted to come into the business, so they didn't want my father. But they found him a job with Pike of Bath, who was a tailor.
Okay.
My father was a qualified tailor and cutter himself.
Was he? Yes.
Yes, and so that got rid of Dad, didn't it? For a moment. Then
They
my
set off to
mother,
Bath, yes.
who had who needed treatment for some time in hospital because she had polyps growing in her nose, and they thought that they might turn malignant, so the thing to do, what they always do with polyps, is remove them. And they did that at the Radcliffe Hospital. While she was in hospital, from which she returned to convalesce to Sis and Nell, Sarah and Ellen to you, I suppose, Warner of Whitney, who did home knitting. You see that they were
Yes.
they were also sisters in this large family, you understand?
Yes.
You've got Mary, as far as the women are concerned, you've got Mary, Sis and Nell, Sis being the older one, and then my mother, the youngest. As far as the men were concerned, there was Uncle Robert, the one with the motorcycle business on the corner of West End. That corner corner between Bridge Street and West End,
Yes.
where there is now a derelict, decrepit door. It's all.
Yes, I think they've recently started tidying that up a bit, haven't they?
Oh, have they? Oh, it's
Yes, I
about
think they have,
time.
yes.
That's right. Well, that's the oldest man in that family of of which my mother was one. Was Uncle Bob Robert. He was a Quaker, and he lived there. He eventually got a wife. You'd have to ask my genealogy who would tell you who she was. He had this motorcycle business. Then there was Uncle John. Uncle John was at 73 High Street. We think 73.
Yeah.
That's right, 73 High Street, where he had a garage, an average type garage with a pit in the floor
Yeah.
and all that
Yeah.
sort of thing. That sort of repair garage.
Yes.
And I'm sure there were pumps there. Don't remember very much because I never stayed there. But Uncle John owned that garage. He also owned the garage up at the Drome. The Drome is not far from where the airfield is at Whitney.
Okay.
But he lived in a wooden bungalow, which we think we've seen is still there, opposite his garage, opposite the drive, at the Drome. Do you see?
Right.
Now,
But it's this John, isn't it, that's
this
living
is
in
John.
Bampton?
John with a great big
No.
tummy.
No.
Yeah.
Which is the one that's living in Bampton?
Mary, the
Mary.
oldest.
Yes.
Mary.
I'm related to.
Married Oliver Collett.
Married Oliver Collett. And Oliver Collett lived in Bampton.
Oh yes, on
Yes.
that on the
Oh,
corner.
right on the corner.
On the corner from Cheapside to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And was he a blacksmith, or did he run a
No,
garage?
no. He
No?
was a watchmaker and jeweler by original. Nearly all the. I think that's how Mary must have met him, because all the Warners were trained by my grandfather as watchmakers and repairers.
Do you know what amazes me? That you can run a business like a watchmaker and watch repairer in what is basically a small village like Bampton. Isn't that amazing? You can make a living out of that.
Well, he had this corner shop, didn't he?
Yeah.
There, you've got.
Did he
you've
do
got
other
photographs
things
on
in
it?
it?
And he was, and from that he seems to have developed into an engineer in much bigger things.
Yes.
And he made all sorts. You see, he was very clever at it. I remember, what roundabouts are like, and how they go round with all the horses going up and down and all that. He made a model of all that. And I'm not sure he didn't play the music. And all the little people went up and down on the horses. He made a model of it. And you used to get out occasionally, like people used to get out anything else to entertain you. I mean, like my father would have got out the magic lantern.
Well, do you remember what else he made? Because he sounds very inventive and very, well...
Yes, I know other things that he made.
Yeah.
For example, I own a tie pin that he made, which Auntie Mary sent me as a memento of him when he died. But that's a minor thing. But he made a bicycle, which with his stiff leg.
Yeah.
He realised he had a stiff leg because he fell into the fork of a tree when he was young, and that damaged the knee, and it was stiff ever since.
Yeah.
So he had one pedal that worked there, and he had things up on the handlebars, which also worked. No, he made that. Then he made the Bampton voiture.
Yes.
Do you know what that is?
Well,
The
we've
car.
seen pictures of that.
That's right.
That
Well,
was
they
amazing.
could
What
go-
date? Do you remember what date he? Well, you wouldn't know. Did you know what date he made that?
No, I don't know.
Was it after you stayed with them?
Or was
Well,
it?
that newspaper article might have it in,
Yeah.
but you've got
Do you remember seeing it? Do you remember seeing it?
No, but bits of it. But I know what happened to it.
Oh, what happened to it then?
Yeah.
'Cause-
No, it was out of date and gone already during this time when I was 7 and
Right.
lived with him.
Yes. Yes.
No, I didn't remember seeing that, but I can tell you what happened to it.
What happened to
He
it?
took it all to bits. We don't know where all the bits are.
Ah.
I only know, we don't know where all the bits are, but I know where one important bit was. And sometime my daughter will send you a sketch plan I made from memory when she can get a photocopy of it. Because you understand that in those days when I was 7, garage owners, both Uncle John and Uncle Oliver, had big lathes. The sort, they were so big that if I, and with flywheels to keep them going, that if I as a boy could get them going, they would lift me up and down on the treadle. You see, they were very big.
These
and
are
they were
run by
proper
treadles.
screw cutting lathes with gears, you know, all that sort of thing. You see, sets of gears, and of course I only played on there. I didn't actually make anything. However, that was what the garage owners did, and when your car axle broke down, you went to them. They made a new axle. They didn't send off to Honda. They made a new axle in the workshop.
Yes.
Screwed end and all. Probably whatever was required, whatever the shape was, they could make it. They actually, yeah.
So when your Uncle Oliver took the car to
No,
bits, did he want to make an improved version, or was he just fed up with it? Why did he take it to bits?
No, that's not what happened. No, here's a bit that I do know and
Right.
did actually see in my own eyes.
Yeah.
It says in some article somewhere that he dismantled it. That is no doubt correct, because I know what happened to the engine. In the end of the actual particular building or workshop where the lathe was, it was a bit fenced off, and there was, if I was facing that, there's a door here down to the other parts, and here's the engine still going, and it's and driving a flywheel, which has a belt on it.
Right.
Okay, and somehow or other is connected to a governor, like a steam engine had, which kept the speed fairly steady.
Okay.
I don't know, that was the bit that Uncle Oliver put on. I mean, he would make any sort of bit that was required to a machine, he would just make it, you see. But I remember seeing this governor going around. Now, furthermore, the belt from the and there was the engine going, okay? And so, like a motor car engine, but a bit more noisy than modern ones, much more noisy. But anyway, and there was this fairly big flywheel, and then a belt going over there, and at that end a smaller wheel, which was therefore going faster, which was on a dynamo. Got it?
Yeah.
Connected by wires, and his, therefore, not in his garage, but his house on the corner, Sheepside, was the only house in Bampton which had electric light, because he was producing his own.
Incredible.
Yeah, see, and that's what happened to the inside of the of the car. I know that.
Yeah.
We don't know. I don't know what happened to all the other bits.
But that was the most important bit,
That's
wasn't
the
it?
most important bit. Yes, I know. And righto.
He sounds an amazing man. He just sounds
Oh,
like
he
he
was a very
invented.
amazing man. Later on, when at a time much later in my life, after my period as an architectural designer and one thing and another, I became redundant when a big firm shut down. And my wife, my second wife, at that time was a teacher, so she said, why don't you train as a teacher? You could be a teacher. And when we had settled the fact that I wouldn't have to start at the bottom of the scale financially, I won't bore you with all that, but amongst the colleges, I applied to 16 colleges, hoping that at least one of them would say, all right, we'll accept you and train you, give you a 2 years course as a school teacher.
Yeah.
And to my astonishment, 9 of them replied and said, yes, we'll take you. So I had a choice. Amongst those, I had a sister. My sister at that time was in Bath, and so I went to amongst them. I spoke not only to Salisbury, where I eventually did train actually, but also to Newton St Low College, Bath.
And what did you teach?
And they, no, I just wanted to say to you, and they asked me to write an essay to sort of show, I mean, they had never seen me before, you see, and could I write an essay about anybody who had influenced my life? And I wrote one about Uncle Oliver, and they were very anxious to have me. However, Salisbury won.
Yes. And what did you go on to teach?
Junior school children,
Did you?
you teach
Yeah.
everything.
Yes,
I
lovely.
taught everything, and although I can draw very well, that's why I became an architectural draftsman and designer, and I could do watercolour. I didn't actually teach art, and I'm not much good at music, so I didn't teach that. I taught everything, and in the end, yes, in a junior school, you have a class, and you're the teacher, you teach them everything. You know, spelling, writing, everything. They were about 10-year-olds that I taught,
Yeah.
and they were lovely.
Yeah,
And they
it's a
thought,
lovely age, isn't it?
and because I was perhaps a bit soft, they thought I was lovely. I know this because there was a glass partition down the side of the classroom, and they went on and on, and you could hit, and so I had a bookcase there where I was standing and nobody could see me, and during the lunch hour, one little girl went down the corridor, and she was taking a new little girl around the school. And as she went, and she would say, "That's Miss So and So. She's the head of a certain yard, you see." And then so the next thing was my classroom. But I was there fiddling about with books, and they couldn't see me. They didn't know I was there. And she said, she was really saying, "That's Miss So-and-so, that's Miss So," as they passed each class. And she said, "That's Mr. Jennings, and he's lovely."
There, isn't
So I
that
know
very
that I was
nice?
lovely.
That's very nice. That's very nice. Go back to being 7 years old in Bampton.
Ah, yes, at 7
And
years old in Bampton.
Yeah, because we're back to
At
our-
7 years old in Bampton,
I just want to know your sort of memories of how the village was at that time.
well, it was, of course, the town hall and all that was the same.
Yes.
The point was that Uncle Oliver's shop was there, and round the corner were 3 pumps,
Yes.
petrol pumps, you know, the B Shell Mex,
Yes.
Shell sent me five shilling postal order because I did a cartoon when I was 7. So they were sorry they couldn't put it into their present advertising program, but they sent me 5 shillings to encourage me.
That's very nice.
And anyway, 3 pumps, okay.
Yeah.
Big wooden doors, and down the drive, and then therefore and down to the main workshop.
Yes.
By that time, I've already passed the workshop where the lathe was, and an old house on the opposite side of the drive, and I think it's ivy clad, and I think it's still there. That old house.
But that's not Cromwell Cottage. Cromwell Cottage was the one by
I
the
don't know what it
pumps.
was called,
Yeah.
but I know that Uncle Oliver must have owned it or as part of the property or something, because there was an old lady on the ground floor to whom no doubt that was let out, and we could go up the stairs, and the upstairs was empty, and it was like an old house, you know, wooden board and all that. And Christopher had a lot of railway, a lot of Hornby train stuff, and we laid it out on all those rooms because they were all empty, do you see?
Yes, lovely. Lovely for boys.
Now he went to Whitney Grammar School, and as you know, Bampton Station is about 2 miles away, not in Bampton, so he got to get there in the morning. And I don't know how he got there, but no doubt there was some transport that
And you've gone on his bike. Lots of children went on their bike.
And I was told that when the school closed, I was to take his bike, which was too big for me. Remember, I'm only 7. So I put my leg under the bar, not over it, and put the bike side at an angle, and rode it like that all the way to Bampton Station.
Yes.
So that the bike would be there for Christopher to use to come back. And then he gave me a ride on the carrier when we got back to Auntie Mary's.
Wouldn't be allowed now, would it?
What?
Wouldn't be allowed now, would it?
Oh, in those days we did all sorts of things that wouldn't be allowed.
Well, tell us about the things you did then that what children wouldn't be allowed to do now. Can you remember?
Well, I wasn't quite an average family, was I? What I mean is, as Plymouth Brethren, they would have been withdrawn from the world. Well, they weren't really, but they thought they ought to be, and so on. I mean, they're it's not like being in a monastery, in a building, but still they
Mrs.
kept...
Eels was... Do you remember Mrs. Eels? Do you remember Grace
Yes.
Eels?
Oh,
Now, they were
I know.
Plymouth Brethren too, weren't they?
Yes,
Yes,
all
they
this
were.
lot were Plymouth Brethren.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite
Except
strong.
for one or
group.
2 uncles of mine that were Quakers.
Right.
So, what was the question?
Just remembering things that you weren't allowed to do and you did it.
Well, I wasn't supposed to mix with all sorts of worldly people, but no, it was probably a good idea not to mix with the boy next door. They were really a very low class family, and he wasn't, and his speech was bad, and I, as a little boy of 7, copied his speech, and when they found that out, they said you shouldn't talk to him. Otherwise, no, I wouldn't remember. How do I know what other children, how could I know what other children would have done? I didn't mix with them.
No, because you went to Miss Dutton's school. You went to Miss Dutton's school.
Yeah, I know about that. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and she gave me, and of course we had slates that we wrote on at Miss Dutton's school. You did arithmetic, you know, 2, 3, 4 to 12 on the slates.
Yeah.
But she did also give me a copybook.
Yeah.
And the copybook had copperplate writing on one line and then blank lines, and you copied it underneath.
Yes.
I went to my innate capability about drawing and all that sort of thing. I suspect I was already a bit gifted in that line, and but since then, you see, I'm known amongst my friends, and entirely due to this italic pen. It's not just me. And when people want something written on the front of a presentation book, they come to me and say, Eric, could you write in the
I
front
think
of
we'll
it?"
get a sample of that later, shall we?
So-
I would like to see your writing, because that's fantastic.
Oh, yes, I'll write something.
Because people now have forgotten. You know, they don't write
Oh, yeah,
well
I
anymore. You can
I
still
use
do it.
fountain pen.
Beautiful. Right, we'll get a picture of that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you remember games you played then? Were you allowed to play games as a Plymouth Brethren?
Well, not with the other lot in the iniquitous world, was I?
No. Are you still a Plymouth Brethren?
No.
When did you
Of
stop?
course not.
Well, they still
I
exist.
escaped.
You escaped.
I escaped, and the way I've escaped to some extent was through the Methodists.
The Methodists in
Which you
Bampton?
might not think of much of a big
No,
jump,
no.
but nevertheless. And of course now, I'm sure I don't believe half of what the Methodists, many Methodists are now my friends, you see,
Yeah.
because of the past history, but one
But when
one
you...
emerges from all these things.
Yes. But when you left the Plymouth Brethren, that meant you couldn't speak to them anymore, and you had nothing to do with them anymore.
Ah, well.
Was it like that? Was it very...
You know about all that, yeah.
I do know. I have a friend who went through it.
We had, owing to a split in the Bath meeting of Plymouth Brethren, my family, and about half the meeting there, by the way, half the congregation, had been withdrawn from. That is to say, excommunicated, or what you like. And my family was amongst the supporters of that half. They weren't the leaders, but so therefore we were already out. But we still went to the meetings. You
Yeah,
see,
that's-
they would tend to believe. They continued in their beliefs.
But where did you, when you were in Bampton, did you go to the meeting house of the Plymouth Brethren then? Do you remember?
Yes, and that was Whitney, of course.
It was in
What
Whitney.
is now the Free Evangelical Church there. The
Right.
Welcome.
Welcome
It's called the
Evangelical
Welcome
Church.
Church.
Right. But was
Near,
there...
near to the Methodists. But I had nothing to do with Methodists in
No.
those days.
But there was a meeting, I thought there was a meeting house at Blackbourne. Grace Eels told me something about baptisms in Blackbourne. Do you remember that? For the Plymouth Brethren?
Well, how would I know that when I was 7?
No, I don't know if you
I don't
ever
know.
went there.
I don't
No.
know. I was just taking whatever children are taking, which is with
Yeah.
their parents. In this case, with Auntie Mary, remember, she'd be the one, wouldn't she? And Uncle Oliver, who had married her, no doubt wasn't Plymouth Brethren before, but he wasn't gonna. He got a good marriage, and that was that.
So you went along for a
So,
quiet
and
life.
also, and he could make a car, and he made one. We know he did.
Yes.
Got pictures of it, haven't we? And every Sunday he took us, not in that car, but in some other car
Yeah,
that he had, a Ford, I think,
right.
because he used to.
He
say-
never made another voiturette then? He never made another Bampton
I
voiturette?
don't think so. I
No.
don't, because he drove a Ford
Yeah,
to Whitney every Sunday
yeah.
to take us all to Auntie's sister now, where we had lunch, and I'm sure Auntie Mary provided a lot of the lunch, Sunday lunch, and we went to the Plymouth Brethren in what is now the Free Evangelical Church
Right,
for the morning service. Okay.
yes.
And then so we came up and down there and up, up the road here until you get to the Curbridge turn, and then up through Curbridge and then to Whitney every Sunday.
Every Sunday, yeah.
Now it was a Ford, undoubtedly, because I remember us passing one other car. It was quite an event if you passed another car.
Yes.
There were so few, and he said, "Oh, it's Ford time."
Did you pass it
I
on?
listened and said, "What's that? Do you know what Ford time is? It's 10 past 10."
Good joke. I'm just going to ask your daughters, is it, because if there's anything else I should ask him about, so to trigger off some more stories.
Only to say that my dad was born in 1917, so this is about 1924 when he was
Yes.
7.
Yes.
But that might be relevant
yes.
when he's...
And you told us last night that Uncle Oliver had a forge.
Yes, he had a forge, well, I've shown it there.
Yes.
He had a forge. Eventually you're gonna get a photocopy of that.
We
That's
will,
the
yes.
only copy. I scribbled all that.
Did that
I
last
scribbled
night.
that in order to,
Unbelievable.
I scribbled that in order to tell them. If I,
What
Yes.
did he do with the forge? I'm not sure.
Yes, forges,
Well,
that
I
suggests
guess-
shoeing horses and things. Did he do that kind of?
I guess that in the past it had been used for that sort of thing. It had an anvil, a blacksmith anvil near it, and a sledgehammer. And as a boy, and it had coals or some sort of coals on there, and it had an annex by it, corrugated iron annex,
Yeah.
in which was a huge bellows.
Yeah.
And out of it came a wooden handle, and I used to pull this wooden handle up and down, and I could get the bellows going.
Yes.
Furthermore, on one occasion, I managed to light some paper and then some wood under these coals, and I got that fire going and pulled the thing up and down, and I found a bit of iron somewhere. See, I was allowed to play around like that. And I got a bit of iron from somewhere and put it in there, and it heated it red hot, or if not white hot possibly, and got the big sledgehammer, as I could just about lift, and bashed it. I didn't ever get any further than that
Yeah.
with it.
But did your uncle do horseshoeing and that kind of blacksmithing, or?
No, I don't remember anything
No.
about any
It's
horses.
just other ironwork.
Well, somebody might have in the past, but
Yeah.
not when I was. No,
Yeah.
if it all gone. No, if it all gone to motor engineering.
Yes,
then.
because we have a photograph which shows that corner and the blacksmith, and I think it was the Cripps family. Now, does that ring any
I
bells?
see.
The
That's,
Cripps.
that's, although that's news to me, I can well imagine that's the case. Yeah, I mean, you're quite right. One, if I, this is me speaking now.
Yeah, yeah.
One wonders where all this stuff originated. When I got there, it was all this huge place with a great big garage and a pit and all
Yeah.
that, and oil and
Yeah.
see, and tires and wheels, and then another attached workshop with the old engine in and the lathe. So where did all that come from?
Because as a watchmaker, he wouldn't be using that
No,
machinery, would he?
it was
Just a-
only a little tiny thing.
Yes, yeah.
No,
But it's
no.
amazing, isn't it, that his
Somehow-
abilities went from there.
Well,
to this
I reckon
big
Uncle
stuff.
Oliver was probably the highest IQ. I don't know this, but I reckon he probably was amongst all my uncles the most intelligent,
Yeah.
probably. And Uncle John must have been pretty good, because he also had a lathe, and he also made, if your car broke down, he also made new parts for you and stuff. And they could,
They could both turn their hands to anything.
well, they had the equipment.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yes. I don't. None of the other parts of this big family expanded into or enterprised into, as you have implied, doing almost anything. That's Uncle Oliver.
Right.
He could do almost anything, and nobody else had their own electric light. It didn't
And it's a wonderful story. that.
see it, but no. So it's only Uncle Oliver that got that far, and he preserved the original training that they were when they were boys. They were all trained as watchmakers. The only so the only one was who kept it up was Uncle Oliver, of course, and he wasn't. Remember, a Warner, was he? So he hadn't been trained as a boy by my grandfather.
Mm.
But so I reckon Mary met him because he was a watchmaker. You know, all the watchmakers would get together. That must be how Auntie Mary ever met him.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I'm very interested, because it doesn't come up very often, the Plymouth Brethren question.
yeah.
Because how big a group of Plymouth Brethren were in Bampton? Do you know? I mean, I only
How
heard
what?
how big a group of Plymouth Brethren. How many families? Do you know?
My answer is, I'm talking from memory, so I
Yeah,
say,
of course.
My answer is that there weren't any other Plymouth Brethren in Bampton.
Right.
They were in Whitney.
Yes. Yes.
And so, what size was the congregation there? $30?
30. Oh.
That sort of size.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
I just sat there as a boy and
Yeah.
looked and behaved myself and was quiet and
Yeah.
playing along with it and so on.
And tell me a little bit more about Dutton's School.
Oh yeah.
Because
well,
that's, I mean, I haven't met anybody else who was at Dutton School, and that's very
they
interesting.
were all girls, or
Yeah.
it almost seemed like young
But
women.
I
to
want
me.
to just ask you something first. Was it a sort of genteel place? It was a school for young ladies and small boys, was it?
I don't think there was any other boys except me.
Oh, okay. For young ladies and one boy.
But I was the only place that I knew Mary could send me.
Yes.
So she sent me to Miss Bampton.
Yes.
And that worked all right, actually.
And you did your work on the slate. Did you do things like dancing or anything like that?
No.
Nothing.
Nothing so.
Nothing.
Oh gosh, she's turning it into modern thoughts of education.
No, what I'm thinking of, because
There's
I
no-
know that as
It's
Miss
not a
Dutton's.
school where there's a gymnasium and you do PE and all. It's just one room.
Yes.
It's just one room and long benches. You sat at a table, see, and there were long benches with no back to them.
Mm.
And I've never said this before anywhere, not even to them. I will tell you this scurrilous bit if you really want a saucy bit.
Yes, please.
New to them.
Do you think they better leave the room?
I really need a bench here with no back to it to do it, but I could sort of, I'm a bit old and it would probably be dangerous for me to do it. However, I sat on my bench at one table, and I suppose there was the odd girl or two down there, and then there were older girls and some other girl behind me, you see?
Yeah.
The ones who told me all the yarns and all that, which weren't true. See, now they sat there, okay, and they were doing their lessons. If, as a boy, I leaned right back, and nobody took any notice of that. Remember, little boys are very agile and can lean back as if they were made of rubber, and then come back again. I could see up their dresses. I could see up their dresses because they sat there with these big fancy things on, you see. And I could see that. I was very intrigued by this. I suppose you might almost say that at the age of 7, the first beginning of my sexual life.
Yes. Much more important than drawing on the slate.
The one photograph that we have of Miss Dutton's school, the children are outside and they're all standing, stretching with their arms up. So of course it's lifted their dresses, and there's this wonderful sight of knickers nearly down to the knees with frills.
Edges.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I saw
Make me
them.
remember that.
Of course I know, I did see.
Well, it's that picture that made me think maybe you did some dancing and stuff there, because it was a very genteel
Well, I
stuff.
expect that they did all sorts of things when I wasn't there, but
Right.
I was just sent there and I went back to Auntie Mary, you see.
Yes.
I'm quite sure that Miss Dutton did all sorts of...
Yeah.
I was a visitor, if you like,
Yes.
to that school, but she taught me useful things, and amongst the most useful of all, I'm sure, was the copper plate writing.
Lovely. Yeah. We'll get it.
Of course,
We'll get you doing that.
I would probably have done pretty good writing anyway. I became a draftsman, didn't I? Or I just had a...
Now you cycled to Bampton Station, or back from Bampton
Well, I
Station.
cycled up the station like this,
Yes.
yes.
And did you take the train to Oxford ever? Do you remember taking the train into Oxford, or?
The answer is no, but there's a but. The but is no. The answer is no, but I did signal a train in, coming the other way, going towards Farringdon. You know, Farringdon was the terminus. Farringdon was the terminus of that line.
Wasn't it Fairford? Was it Fairford, not Farringdon?
No. Burford's the wrong direction. It went-
Fairford.
Ah, Fairford.
Yes.
Oh, is it called Fairford?
Yes, I think it was Fairford.
It was
the end.
Fairford, but
Yeah.
I'm sorry about
That's
that.
right.
Yeah, yeah, I see what I mean. Yeah, all right, in Fairford then.
Yeah.
Not Farringdon, it's Fairford. Yeah. Farringdon I came through when I cycled, didn't I?
Mm.
Yeah. Farringdon is a cycle thing. Sorry. Fairford, right. A train coming from Oxford to Fairford,
Yeah.
I signalled it in. Of course I hadn't got the strength to signal it in, but the signalman and Christopher, this is the clue,
Cousin.
and Christopher stood behind me and really pulled it, did it, but held my hands. Of course, you asked, did I ever do things which
Yes.
boys weren't allowed to do? Of course, none of it was quite illegal. None of us should have been in this single box. But Christopher was very interested in trains, hence the Hornby trains in the old house, and he was friends with the signalman, and so Christopher and I knew all about what was happening. I mean, we knew the bell code, ding ding ding, and which meant that the train is going to leave Whitney Station, okay? And then we had to, and then the signalman had to press the little tapper or lever on these these little boxes which are on a shelf, and ring back, ding ding ding. You see, and that meant yes, I will accept that train. There's no, it won't run into anything else here. So he would accept it, and then the man at Whitney would let the danger signals down, and the train could go. No doubt the car would blow, so the train would go and come down to us. At every station on this single track, single line thing, there was a loop so that trains could pass one another. And then he would signal down to us, and we would do the same thing, wouldn't we, for the next station down, which was whatever the villages are down there.
They stopped at Cassington. They stopped at
What?
at Cassington.
Cardington, I should
No,
think.
Cassington, I think. Cassington. That was on the way to Oxford.
No, on the way
other
down
way.
to
Oh, the
Fairford.
other way to Farringdon. Blackboughton. Blackboughton, there was a station.
Was it? Well, it was down to there.
Stopped. Yes, yes,
That's yeah.
yes. You do remember
Okay.
it. Well, that was a rare privilege, getting into the signal box and pulling the lever.
Well, so it was rare and illegal.
And it's illegal, yes.
Yeah.
Well, how nice that they
Well,
let
I
you do it.
mean, when you're very young, especially perhaps in those days, when there was less governmental control, like there is over all of us now, and you know, a few rare things would have happened. Of course, people had experiences, didn't they, at sea and so on, which are unusual. Unfortunately, for the people on the Titanic, it killed
Yes.
most of them.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, well.
Well, I think perhaps we should. At the end, it was
How old were you when you left Bampton?
just 8.
I think I was still 7 when I got to Bath, but I might have been 8. I mean, the point is, I didn't live there for years. I lived there for something less than a whole year, I think.
Were you here to see
But
the Morris
I was here
dancing?
for Bampton Fair.
Oh, in
I
August.
did go to Bampton Fair and lost some money on them, which I shouldn't have used for that purpose at all. But you know, I mean, you don't.
Were you here at Whitsun to see the Morris dancing, or were you not allowed to go out and see such pagan carryings on?
Well, they wouldn't have taken the trouble to keep me off the street or anything. It was going on. I do remember seeing Morris dancers somewhere, but I can't be sure that was Bampton, but it might
Yes.
have been.
Whit Monday.
It might
Just, it
have
happens
been.
one day a year. Yeah.
Well, it might have been, and then I would have gone out. Uncle Oliver and Auntie Mary certainly wouldn't have stopped me going out and having a look. I went around with the dog named Jacko and Auntie Mary's old cycle, and I cycled around I went from Bampton to, and I remember fishing for tiddlers on some bridge near here. Because when I worked for Rima, a big construction company that I worked for in Salisbury, one of the directors took me because he wanted me to take some minutes or something at a business meeting they were having. And he took me to, and we went past the bridge, and I remember saying to him, there were a lot, you understand there were other people from that company in the car who were going to a business meeting. I wasn't running the meeting. This director, who happened to be driving the car, was. I had been told to go with them so I could make minutes of the meeting. Okay? As we passed this bridge, I said, "Oh, I used to fish for tiddlers there." And I remember the director saying over his shoulder, "Never mind about your tiddlers, Eric. You're going to concentrate on the fact." See?
Would that be Tadpole Bridge? It's either Tadpole Bridge or Radcott Bridge.
Or the Isle of
It might have been Radcott.
Well, it could be Radcott.
There's a bridge there, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
Yes,
On
it
the way to
might have been
Barrow.
Radcott Bridge. It's
Yeah.
been on back.
Yes,
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh, yeah. Much later, another director took me. That's not the one where there's a cafe in the field down low there?
No, that's the Rose Revived, I think.
What?
Maybe,
No,
which would that be?
Tadpole Bridge.
No, but one
Because
with the
cafe
cafe.
there.
Yeah, where the
Could
cafe's
be,
down
could
in the
be.
grass, below the bridge.
Not sure.
I was taken there once by another director.
Yeah, what do you think that? I mean, now children can't go out on their bikes, which I don't know what you because of the cars and everything.
Oh, because of the car.
Yeah. Which I think is a
but
great
see,
change.
that wasn't the problem with me. There were very few cars.
Yeah.
You see a car in the distance. Well,
Get to the side.
all I can tell you is it was no problem to me. I went everywhere, anywhere. Of course, I didn't go to a city like Oxford. I didn't get that far anyway. I mean, the longest I ever got to was North Leach.
Yeah.
You know where North Leach is?
Yes.
That's a fair distance.
I understood. I had heard that there was a windmill there. And I wanted to see this windmill. And I got there, and I think there was a windmill in those days. I didn't draw it. That's what I would have done nowadays. And I got exhausted on that journey.
It was a long way.
Yes, to see the long way.
It was a very long way, and on the way back, I lay on the grass bank because I was exhausted, and I wasn't. I was only a couple of miles or so from Whitney. I nearly got there, and I got exhausted, and I went up a drive to a farm and told them that what happened to me. I laid my bike down and went up this, and I looked up the way, and I went there, and they gave me a glass of milk, and they rang up Uncle John, and he said to them apparently, "Oh, never mind, I'll come and fetch him." So, you see, I was fetched and taken anywhere by car if I wasn't on a bike. And he said, "We'll collect your bike another day."
That one was Bampton, was it?
No, that's the drone, Whitney.
Yes, yes. I would very much like, because you've got this fantastic writing, which nobody has these days, I would really love to see you write something. And you can, I don't know what you're going to write.
Right, we've got to get a table.
Bring your chair up to the table.
Yeah, fine. And I must say, you're fantastic to interview, because you remember so much.
Oh, yes, you see, that the memory is very, very, very good.
It is
And the mind, all
fantastic.
right, the body has just got a bit older than
It's a
the...
shame, isn't it? Because yes,
Than the
you're
other.
right, your mind is fantastic.
But
Terrific memory.
I can write anything.
You can write anything, so as it's not rude.
Yeah. No, I won't write the story about the girls.
I would pity.
Yes, if it was a thicker pen, it would look more copper-plated. and some you can get big, wider
Yes.
nibs.
Yes.
With it's not going thick and thin like a bigger nib would have
Yeah,
done.
it's still beautiful writing.
With a wide nib. The thick and thin effect. The more emphatic, I don't know what word to use.
Emphatic will do fine.
Yes, depends on various things and how hard the surface is.
Yeah.
But it's largely a question. Smiths all over is who sell Parker pens.
Yeah.
There are wider nibs you can put in.
Yes.
That nib can be put into there and taken out with a pair of
Okay.
pliers,
Yeah.
no problem.
No problem.
And you can get, and if I had a wider one or anything else, or if you gave me a ordinary
dip
wide
pen.
italic pen, a dip pen, yeah, I could do it with that.
Well, I like to think of you in Miss Dutton's school with those little girls learning that and how well it's lasted, isn't it?
Suppose, well, if I'm pressed hard,
Well, don't ruin your pen.
Miss, no, I don't want to read it. Miss Dutton.
Yeah, yes. He's not very often remembered. It's wonderful.
Yes, I don't know. So you can get quite a thick line. You can also, you can get quite a thin line. It's just, but it's difficult. You can see I was pressing quite hard there.
Yes, and it's probably not good for the pen.
difficult.
You need to get a calligraphy pen.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I've got some at home,
Have you?
but I
Yes,
haven't
but
got them here.
You didn't know we were going to ask
I
you.
didn't
did you?
know they were going to ask me that, no.
No, that's wonderful.
So I don't
Oh, you
think-
must be very proud of him. Brilliant.
Yes.
Really brilliant dad to have.
Cal-
Do you have, what, 92?
Dig.
92 now.
Very impressive.
Calligraphy. No.
Amazing. Thank you, thank you. So glad.
Not many odd things I get asked to do sometimes.
Well, we're not going to ask you to bend back on a bench. That's, we won't ask you to bend backwards on a bench.
No, you won't have to do that. And don't copy that onto a cheque, will you? Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming. I mean, that's been a real pleasure talking to you. Really, very much.
This is
Have you got some photographs?
this is my dad. We haven't got many to do with Bampton, unfortunately, but this is my dad and his sister in Uncle Oliver's garden. But this is obviously when he was older than 7,
Yes.
so when they were visiting, presumably. My aunt obviously hasn't got very good writing, unlike my dad's, but she's just put in Uncle Oliver's pool.
Yes.
So,
And your mother and Eric.
so
So is that his mother?
that's my dad's mother.
Yes.
So she's a sister of Mary Collett. Mary
Yes.
Collett. But this is my dad and his sister in Uncle Oliver's garden. Dad,
In the pond, which is there.
just I don't know if he remembers anything when he was older, because presumably they must
So
have
we can go-
visited.
Should we take
I haven't
When I
taken any
was
copies of
younger,
that.
I never-
Well, we can-
So I
I never
started
thought it'd
scanning
be
some of these old
92.
photos. And
Yes,
this
I don't
one,
think any of us do.
this
No.
one we were confused about. This is
No.
my dad's parents and his sister and his an adopted, sort of semi-adopted sister.
Yeah.
This is Ethel, and this says Auntie Emma. We were puzzling only last night over this because my auntie's written Ethel and Auntie Emma, and of course it was Auntie Mary. And when we went to her grave, my dad was
didn't
saying, "Oh
realise-
no, her name on the grave it
I
says
didn't
Mary
realise that
Emma."
Mary's
So
middle name was
this
Emma.
must be
I'd
Oliver
never
Collett's
heard
wife
it. She was
and his
always Auntie
daughter.
Mary.
So presumably, possibly Oliver Collett took the photo. It was my grandfather, this gentleman who was my dad's father, who was the keen photographer. So presumably Oliver Collett may have taken this photo because his wife and daughter are there and he's not in the picture.
Yes.
I'm not sure
Yes.
where my dad is. I don't
Do you
know.
think, and that must be the Ford.
This is obviously
car.
not the Bampton Vacherette,
Yeah,
but
no, it looks
we're
like
not
a Ford.
sure. You don't know, do you, if that's your dad's car or Oliver Collett? It might have been Oliver Collett's car, perhaps. In that, but we
Have
don't
you-
know where.
have
the
you seen
picture's
these?
taken.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
they,
wouldn't have thought my dad ever had
They've
a
got-
car.
they were photos. Yeah, my dad's seen them, but they were photos kept by his
Taken
sister.
out.
So we can get a copy.
I wouldn't have thought
I've
my-
been starting to scan them, but I haven't.
I wouldn't have thought
No,
my
we're
dad
going
had a
to-
car. It was posh as that. When he became a travelling, when he got this job with Pikes in Bath, tailors, and did the run with them, he eventually got a business of his own. And he bought a car with no back, no
yeah.
back seats, all derelict at the back, for £5. And he made a big box. And then we used to put the suitcases with his
His father.
suits on that he was going to sell in this box back, do you see? And when we got to a steep place like Wellow Hill near Bath, the car wouldn't go up there with all the stuff on it. So we took all the suitcases out and put them on the road, and I stood by them to guard them, and Dad drove the car up, which would then go up the hill, and then we carried all the suitcases up to the car and put them in the back of the old car. It really was a banger.
So this car in this picture is unlikely to be your dad's.
No,
Maybe-
it's far too.
So this is more
it's
likely to be
far
Oliver
too-
Collett's, another of his cars that he owns.
It's
then,
far
perhaps.
too posh a looking car.
I think this must be the
Uncle
same.
Oliver may have had it.
Switch over.